What's up, YouTube? Dark Lord Diablos coming at you on a very, very sweet Valentine's Day with my Duel Master Duel. Duel Masters is a different thing entirely. Deck profile on the archetype Weather Painters. Now, Weather Painters is a goofy little archetype that came out in the beginning of the Vrains era, just when Link monsters were starting to take their swing. And they were famous for being interesting. Not necessarily competitively viable, but interesting. And they remain so to this day. I've had my eyes on them for a while and just really hadn't gotten around to building the archetype. And they recently got some new support, which is not sadly in Master Duel, but I'll probably talk about that in a different video. Maybe. Probably not. That made them a little bit better, but not much. Essentially what they do for the main core part is different attributes based off of different weathers. For example, the Painter Sun, he's a 5 level 3 fairy monster. Now, their effects normally don't matter in the slightest. In fact, the only effect you're really going to use out of this archetype is Snow. Which I can say right now, when she's normal summoned, you can place a Weathery spell or trap card from your deck face up in your spell or trap card zone, which means their effects are already active and ready to go. That is majorly important for this archetype, because mainly what you want is to have those spell and traps active. That's how this deck runs. Kiss is actually these spells or trap cards, and I think I just got a little pedantic there, but you'll see here in a second. For example, the Weathery Snowy canvas, when a weather monster is either adjacent or in front of this card in the spell or trap card zone, you can banish that monster to activate various effects. With the Snowy canvas, that allows you to search out a weathery card from your deck to your hand. But during the standby phase of your opponent's turn or your turn, so you can activate these on your opponent's turn too, which is very important of some of the tech choices I decide to run in this card, you can search a card. Or, for, say, let's say, Thundery Canvas, can return the battling monster to the hand and banish the attacking monster, which is great to go in for the kill. I never went in the kill with it, but it's feasible to do it. Now, these are the two main continuous cards that you want to run. I run them at 3. You always want to have them readily available. The others you run one of. They don't really do much of immediacy to justify them being run at more than one. For example, Rainy Canvas can bounce a spell or trap card your opponent controls. You don't necessarily need to do that unless they're running like Vanity's Fiend and you need to special summon. The Cloudy Canvas, it has the attack of the opponent's monster for the rest of the turn, giving it the cost to attack directly. This can save your ass occasionally, and I'll explain why in a second, but you only run it at 1 because you can search it out anyway, and it's not really a necessity to have at all times. And the last one, which is the Sunny Canvas, this allows you to summon a weather monster from your hand or graveyard with a name, with not the same name as the attributed monster you had on the field, which is really good to bring out your big monster, which is the one of Aura. So, like I said, the deck is weird, and I'll put up a video of me going up against somebody for a win. So it takes a while to get the resources for it to pop off. I run 3 Valhalla Hall of the Fallen because if any fairy deck, this is a great staple, period. But if you can summon a card to the field fast as possible, it is amazing. The one card you want to continuously special summon is Rain, because if she's special summoned, you can place a weather spell or trap card from the hand in the face-up spell or in your face-up spell or trap zone. Now, that doesn't sound like a good thing, because if they're already in your hand, why don't you place them? Well, it's quite simple. If you're planning on going to battle this turn, you might want to have this active, or if you have Rainbow, you might as well have it active and ready to go, so you don't have to wait a turn to activate it. Traps. That's why they're just decisive. Speaking of traps, I'm running 2 Threatening Roar because they're very easily for free if you get the structure decks. And trust me, you can get all 3 of the early structure decks. So running these two is a very great idea, particularly if you don't have any resources at hand available. You can activate this on the start of your opponent's turn, and they just cannot declare an attack this turn. No matter what big board they build, they can't really finish you off this turn. So that means they still have to wait one turn to kill you. I've run one Drowning Mirror Force. I'm about to turn that into two because you don't really need Solemn Judgment. I just have it because I only have one Drowning Mirror Force. When your opponent declares a direct attack, you can shuffle all of your opponent's attack position monsters into the deck. Fairy comes into handy, especially if you're about to die, which, trust me, you're about to die, period. I run two Dimensional Finisher because it's a continuous spell to prop Thunder's effect, so that can be easily sent to the graveyard, and it pretty much can screw most opponents' decks over if they heavily rely on the graveyard too much, which is mostly Blue Eyes, and I believe Tri-Brigade, because they have a lot of graveyard effects, but I haven't really went up against Tri-Brigade, which is surprising considering Tri-Brigade is one of the top meta decks in the simulator. So that's very useful to handle them. And the rest of the cards is simple. I run Battle Fader to stall out the opponent as much as possible, Maxi to draw into your combo pieces, Ash Blossom Joyous Spring to get rid of problematic searches, and Nibiru for the pendulum matches. I realized Nibiru became a necessity when I went up against a pendulum deck who had a full field of monsters that I could not deal with. You could simply get rid of the token that it causes with either Breaksword or Cerberus, so it doesn't really matter. Now the extra deck. The extra deck is kind of interesting. For my Xyz lineup, I run one Submarinal Carrier Aereo Shark, because occasionally you will lose your monsters if their effects get tampered with, and they'll be banished. And sometimes its effect can win you games. Sometimes, very rarely, it has happened. Breaksword because it's just a generally good utility card. Super Mecha Quantum Grand Pulse. The blue Megazord, the blue Zord. You run that for spell or trap card removal and it's a great booty. Bamboozling Shadow, great for getting cards and advantages. Your normal Cerberus Nightmare lineup. I run one Phoenix and one Cerberus. You could get rid of IB Masquerena because I hardly use her, but you could replace her for Unicorn if you find it necessary. I run two Transfer because being able to switch monsters in a short notice is very, very helpful. I run one Goddess of the Underworld, Aresh, one Appaloosa for obvious reasons for negation, and Borosword Dragon for, Borosword Dragon shenanigans. Now, the boss monster for the deck, which you're probably rarely ever going to summon because of how difficult it is to bring out on a consistent basis, is the Weather Painter Rainbow. Now, she is really good for a boss monster. It's just that the archetype really can't facilitate her really that well. It's kind of like Trulula. Very great ice barrier and boss monster, but the ice barriers themselves can't bring it out. But this is worse because you actually do need 3 weathery monsters to bring her out. Her effect negates the summon of a monster by destroying herself, and any weathery monster that is in her link arrows basically turns them into a negation. She is that good, but again, I barely am able to summon her during a match. When you summon her with a good amount of setup, she's really good. I suggest running her at 1 and then probably putting in Topologic Bomber Dragon, but I run her at 2. Now that we've done... Now, is that really fast forward this? We're just going to fast forward this because it is a very long duel. A lot of back and forth. Sadly, I had not drawn into any of my weathery monsters, which is the one problem with this deck. If you don't draw into your weathery monsters, you're pretty much stuck. And that's pretty much how I was for the first few turns. Of course, I'm able to stall off his attacks for the most part because of Battle Fader. And, of course, he's going to do Galaxy Eye things For a moment, I actually thought I was going to run into a Cyber Infinity Dragon, which would have been a problem. Now see here, I stopped his attack with Battle Fader. I drew into my second Max C. He's going to destroy my Battle Fader. I don't know why, but I think it was so he can discard. I'm going to attempt to search. He's going to negate it. I kind of expected him to negate it. I was just trying to get Thunder off the field. So I could... And here's where it interrupts it. He was able to stop his effect during the special summon fiasco to prevent him from coming back. So now he's forever banished. He is going to attempt to finish me with the OTK strategy for Galaxy Eyes. But, again, Drowning Mirror Force fixes all that. I finally am able to get a Weathery monster, which allows me to actually do something. I go ahead and get Thunder again. He brings that card. Now, to basically explain what this card does, it is basically a monster reborn, but you pay 1,000 life points. And it allows you to summon a Photon monster and a Galaxy monster from your deck and make them both the same level. Wait, hold up, let me read this again. Basically, you target 2 Galaxy or Photon, a Galaxy and Photon monsters in from your deck, 1 Photon in your graveyard, and 1 Galaxy monster from your deck with the same level, and special summon them with make their attack 2,000. Essentially built up for extra deck plays, but the problem is it costs him 2,000 life points, and he already played one beforehand. He first summons that to prevent me from playing any spells. Of course, I negate his attack. Summon Snow. Search out Thunder. Link summon into Cerberus. Discard the canvas in my hand to destroy that thing so I can go in for some attacks. Search out Rainbow. Set Rainbow. And activate Rainbow while simultaneously special summoning Cloud. Activate Rainbow's effect to summon Aura. Now I'm thinking he's thinking I have another Battle Fader in my hand, which is why he did that. They summoned Zeus. Then I summoned Nibiru. He activates Zeus's effect to send my spells or traps to the grave. But I Nibiru his Zeus. And that is basically how the deck runs. Now, again, depending on your perspective, the deck can be really fun or really boring. Because the whole thing of the deck is you got to out-resource your opponent and go into a grind game. It's similar to Blue Eyes, as Blue Eyes does the same thing, but in my opinion, Blue Eyes is more effective at it because they have better outs. This deck really doesn't have better outs, and you're too heavily reliant on your spell and trap cards. But the deck is really fun and I highly recommend it. That is all for this deck profile. I will see you next time. I'm going to try to post more often, particularly since I'm out of my COVID. And I hope to catch you next time. Ciao!